Hello, everybody. This is Anthony, be honest, from Mission Star Podcast, and we have another edition of the Conover. With me today, his first time on this podcast, aka that cosplay guy, aka Manny. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, Anthony.
Not a problem. Now, you went to a convention kind of a while ago. We have to go back in time a little bit, and talk about your time at Screwattack Gaming Convention. The funny thing is, like, I kind of knew what Screwattack was because I watched a lot of their death matches and a lot of their content. I didn't know they had an entire convention to themselves. So I was kind of surprised when you went and told me about it. Can you tell me your kind of experience when you went?
Oh man, where to even begin? To be honest with you, actually, I was kind of more in the dark on this one, probably more so than you, just because I've heard of Screw Attack and I may have seen a couple of their videos, but I guess I've stayed more in tune with IGN, and I know we'll probably hear a lot of groans in the background on this one.
Right.
But no, Screw Attack, apparently they've been doing these conventions for, correct me if I'm wrong, any viewers, but it sounded like at least for the last, 4 or 5 years. So, I mean, this has definitely been long in the making, and this is just the convention portion. I mean, Screw Attack has existed long before that, but in terms of their actual holding the convention so gamers can come together under one roof and really share their experiences, it sounds like it's been at least around 5 years. Apparently what made this one so special this past June in Dallas, Texas, was that just kind of like previous years, a lot of it was about 80% of it was the backing of the fans, and that really is from like Kickstarter events and just these grassroots movements where it's like, hey guys, we really want to do this for you, and that's why it's all here for you. We're trying to bring all these great stars here, but let's be honest. I mean, people need to get paid for their time, so and to make it worthwhile. So and to put it all together. So it really asked the fans to put it together, and in doing so, not only did they make it happen, but what I thought was so cool is they had this giant looking like Declaration of Independence like wallpaper, and on it was everyone's name, and if they wanted to, they could actually walk up to it and sign it with a permanent marker saying like, yeah, this is me and here's my stamp, and I just feel glad, being a contributor to this and making it happen. So from what I heard, there were people who donated as little as $50 to people who donated 500 or even within the thousands. So
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
That's pretty awesome. Like
Mhm.
from the convention, I've been to a lot of conventions over the years, and I've never quite heard of a convention that is kind of dependent on people. I mean, not dependent on, but like kind of the fans actually giving back and actually helping the convention keep on going and growing. That's really cool. I've never heard of anything like that before. When you were there, like, well, did you have any expectations when you first came to the convention, or was there like kind of like a pre-dated, like a kind of a something you have already thought of, like what it could be?
Well, honestly, when I hear that it's centered on gaming, I thought, oh, right, cool. We're going to, be in a room full of intense gamers, and I figured there's probably going to be some, just some intense conversations on not only what's the latest and greatest in gaming, but also, what are some classics. I mean, there's always the debate of which one was the best Final Fantasy and series, so I figured there's going to be a lot of that. And then what I thought was really cool, and I kind of mentioned this in our review of SGC, was I did hear they were going to have a cosplay contest, and just talking to my best friend Corey, who's the guy who invited me down there with him, he made it sound like, cosplay was just going to be an afterthought, but going there, it was such an integral experience to it all. And what was so cool is that because, cosplayers and non-cosplayers alike shared the commonality of gaming, it was easy to, I guess, meld on that portion, having that commonality, and that for both people would be like, wow, that's cool, but also for non-cosplayers, they're like, oh, this is what cosplay is about. This is really cool. So it kind of brought them into that world as well. So
Awesome. I So obviously that cosplay, I mean, like it's almost like sprinkles. You just throw it on something, it'll just look delicious. It's cool that they did add that to the convention because like I think that from what it sounds, it kind of reminds me of PAX. How PAX is like a majority it is gaming, but there
Mhm.
are cosplayers there. They go and do cosplays, and their cosplays are really awesome.
Mhm.
So adding it to this convention is awesome. Like totally agree with that decision. And as a cosplayer, and like that's pretty awesome.
Mhm.
Um, when you were there walking around, like, was there any particular panels or events you went and go and checked out, or was there something that kind of caught your eye?
Well, I mean, when you look at the brochure, especially with names like Adam Sessler and Jim Sterling, and just huge big names like that, AVGN, James Rolfe. It's like, oh man, I gotta hit these guys up. So you do what you can with the little bit of time that you have, and unfortunately, out of all those guys, was unable to see Adam's panel. But from what I hear, it was kind of brief, especially on his part, and actually interacting with the audience. So maybe, hopefully, I didn't miss out on too much. But I did attend a good portion of James's panel, and it was very interesting. But I thought my personal favorite was actually watching Nathan Barnett, and just seeing him not just as that character, but also as himself, and then just being able to talk about his experiences both on and off the show, and just seeing that same character, Keith Apicary, of course, when he comes out live and really interacting with the audience. So it was a really great experience.
That's cool. I mean, like, what for those who don't know, what was Nathan's show? What's exactly is his character?
Sure. Basically, what really hit it off is Nathan. He's this, I guess, kind of you could say multi-talented performer, but in particular, he's known for making his like own original kind of music videos. And what he'll do is he'll take something that's familiar, like the theme song to Mario, and then he'll have someone kind of remix it a little bit so it's kind of pepped up so you can easily dance to it. And then he creates these like original music videos that he'll post on YouTube of him dancing, and he'll dress up, of course, as the character. But what's so cool is he'll do a montage of him not only dancing, but in like actual live locations, just all around the world in random places, from like gas stations to casinos to actual like shopping malls or something, of him just dancing in character as Mario to this cool Mario dance tune remix. And it's just, amusing to see, but also it's cool to watch him do some pretty cool dance moves. And he'll vary it up by choosing other familiar video game themes, Zelda or something like that. And just from, as an entertainment standpoint, it's just really cool watching him. And then also later on, he tends to branch out by just talking about his experience with video games itself, including some of the classics Sega Dreamcast. So yeah, he's definitely really out there. He likes to push the envelope, but in a way that makes it interesting, but you don't feel uncomfortable as an audience member, and he just keeps things fresh. So very cool guy to watch, very funny. So, and even cooler to meet in person.
Awesome. When you were walking around the convention, now where was the convention held, and like how big was it? Like not only attendance wise, but like the space that you were walking around in. Like did it feel like there were a lot of people there and it felt very cramped, or was it like you're walking around, there was no issues with any traffic or whatnot in hallways of that nature?
That's an amazing question. And honestly, being that this is probably my first like really huge epic convention, I was really surprised. Like going to some of these anime conventions, I mean, you get kind of used to this narrow hallway kind of environment and these like stampede or hordes of people going through at their time.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, so you just feel like you're getting lost in the crowd. But on this one, and you can probably see from just some of the pictures that I have, where it's just like there are no small hallways. Like the only small hallways are if you went to your room, and also before I get too carried away, this was held in again Dallas, Texas, near Fort Worth, and this was held at the Hyatt Hotel. So I mean, this is like big spenders here, or at least the convention goers,
Oh yeah.
making it big. And just to spend the night was pretty expensive too. So fortunately, my friend's mom was able to cover that, so that really helped out. But anyways, so because of the venue and the location, not only was it perfect in terms of everyone within the Dallas area being able to come in, but also within the hotel itself, very spacious lobbies. There really were no hallways per se where they were holding the panels, because it was like just these giant lobbies, rooms that would connect to each other. So it just felt like this one giant, I guess, like gymnasium kind of thing. And then inside of it, of course, were the different panel rooms, but they weren't like the smaller, like lobby panel rooms that you're used to seeing in a hotel. I mean, these were like giant, like auditorium, like panel rooms. So very impressive. It was impressive in the sense that it wasn't overwhelming, but it was just enough to accommodate such a large audience on such a short notice. So I was very impressed, and unlike, some other conventions I've been to, I didn't feel like I was just standing in line the whole time, or things were getting so crowded and the temperature was too much or something like that. So it was great overall experience.
Awesome. As somebody who has been to many conventions myself, that is often the issue when it comes to major conventions. Is as far as it's like you're walking in a convention, and it's either spacious where you can walk around, or it's really cramped and you like are in a line just to get from one end of the convention to another. But it's good to hear that the Screwattack convention was enough space so you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Um, I just out of curiosity, like, was it pretty hot there, like during the convention, or I mean, like inside obviously it's gonna be cool and like have water stations, but like during the day, like outside, like was it like hot as hell, or was it like a temperature where it was like it's okay to walk around in?
Oh yeah, good question. Actually, the temperature outside, and maybe it just has to do with the season, but from what I was told, it was supposed to be really hot, like in the upper 90s, closer to the hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I actually had to put on a jacket a couple times, and I rarely spent any time outside. But when I did, just making some videos, I actually had to put on a longer shirt just because I felt like it was kind of like windy, so it made it cooler, I guess, than what it really was. But honestly, I didn't spend too much time outside because I didn't have anything going on out there, even like photo shoots or cosplay. Like everything was done pretty much inside.
Okay.
Otherwise, the building temperature was perfect. I mean, you'll see these people dressed up in like thick layers of what I would consider as more like winter clothing, just for their cosplay, like Ezio, from Assassin's Creed, things like that. And usually at some of these other cons I've been to, especially in the smaller hallways and lobbies, I mean, you get really stuffy, and there's like too many people in one room kind of feeling. But no, this one definitely was not the case. So I was really impressed.
Awesome. Walking around in the convention center and kind of just enjoying the atmosphere that is the con. Was there any particular moment you ran into that was just like either really weird or like really awesome?
Oh, definitely a couple of those. um, Well, let's see. In terms of really awesome, I had seen a couple of Pro Jared videos from Screwattack, and and since then Jared has moved on his own and is kind of doing his own thing. And for anyone who hasn't, I guess, heard of Pro Jared, he used to do like the news broadcast for basically Screwattack, and he just let you know on what's the latest and greatest on gaming. So he became this face of the news and where gamers can find out what's coming up or what's hot. And then after a while, he just went on his own outside of Screwattack. But what was so cool about seeing him for the first time at the convention was not just seeing someone that you really admire or respect, but what was so cool about his panel is when you got to listen to him, I mean, you really felt like there was a genuine connection between him and the gamers, and there was this kind of like, even though it was just him and the audience, it was almost like this one-on-one, like, hey, bro, this is what this game's about. It's really fun. Like, and this is what I do, so you could really connect. And he was very humble. He didn't seem, unapproachable like maybe some other folks may seem. So for me, that was a great experience. In terms of awkwardness, I mean, it's awkward just seeing Nathan running around like in his underwear, and you're always like, you're like wondering, oh man, is security gonna pull this guy over? But no, they played around with it, and that's another thing that really surprised me is at a place like the Hyatt, very well respected. I thought they would be complete, hotel Nazis in terms of, accommodating their other guests who are not part of the convention and maybe of like business status. They're like, hey, what's going on here? This isn't formal. But no, they were just just like, look, folks, this is a convention. Just please move on. Let these guys do their thing. It's only for 4 days. So.
Right. It's good to hear because like oftentimes like with hotel staff or convention staff in general, like the stories I would hear from people are not always the best. But sometimes they are pretty cool with it. Sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing that they were pretty cool with it, and like realize like this is all for fun, convention wise, and it's like, oh, okay, that's really good to hear. That's really good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when as far as like how the convention was organized, like obviously there was panels and there was other rooms, but like what exactly was there to go check out if you were say I wanted to go check out and play video games, or say there's like other rooms I haven't checked out yet, because it's a person who's been to specifically anime conventions. Majority of the times I would go to panels, or I'd go to the video game room, or sometimes I like to go to a room that just is showing anime. For this convention, what exactly was there for congoers and gamers?
Mm-hmm. So it really had the run of the gamut, which I was surprised because I would have thought something like a gaming convention would have just strictly been focused on gaming. But again, you have this huge taste of cosplay going on. They even also had things like tabletop gaming.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, really representing all forms and genres. So I thought that was really cool. In terms of the layout overall, you basically had like the main lobby area, or the first floor, or the main floor, and that was just this huge, gigantic, like gymnasium-like area where people can just congregate, and they had plenty of tables, so then that way if you need to sit down and rest in between panels, you could talk about your experience. And then, conveniently located nearby, they'd have the 3 or 4 main panel rooms, and they were like ballroom-sized panel rooms, so definitely huge. But naturally, you start building up these lines, and what I thought was really cool is, again, the hotel staff, they're just like, hey guys, you can keep talking that, but let's try to keep things organized. Let's try to, not clog up the area, even though I couldn't see how you could. But so everyone was very, positive and, trying to work together. There wasn't any, like, major outbursts that required, the cops or anything. So it was very laid back in that sense. In terms of the other activities you could do on the lower levels, you had some of the more traditional, like, smaller panel rooms, and those were obviously, of course, used for the maybe the less bigger panels, like the ones that Adam Sessler was not attending, ones like that. So I'm just trying to think, for example, of who was there. Like I attended a panel. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but it was basically the I'm trying to remember. It's like the Gamers Challenge group or something. It's this group on YouTube where these guys, they basically, the Completionists, that's what it is. Where on YouTube, basically this group of guys, what they'll do is, like on PlayStation, or even on Xbox, how they have the trophy system, and you just try to complete like everything you can in a game.
Right.
Well, that's what these guys do. That's what they dedicate, their show and their lives to. So they hosted a panel on one of the smaller ones, and it was still crowded, but obviously it was more appropriate to have it located in the smaller, lower level area as opposed to in the larger ballroom. So they definitely timed that well. And then also in the lower level, they basically reserved this, like, they combined 2 ballrooms together for both one half the gaming area, which, I mean, there were tons and tons of games. I mean, like, imagine, the biggest arcade place you've ever been into that has, like, all these, old and new classic arcade games, actual consoles, and they'd stack them up in. What I thought was interesting is rather than stacking them up in like these long rows where you're like elbow to elbow, they stacked them up in like these star-like formations, all facing outwards, so that way gamers could all like huddle up in like a circle area by each console, but you weren't like elbow to elbow, which makes sense. So I thought that was an interesting, layout of it. And then next door, conveniently located, was the Indie Gamers group. And
Oh,
this is
awesome.
something and this is, in fact, that one review I posted on our site for Mist of Stagnation, a group I interviewed of Cyrus Studios, which again, huge shout out and thanks to those great folks, taking their time at SGC with us. But basically, for anyone attending, you can easily just go up to the indie gamers, try out their games, really sit down and talk with them. And what I thought was so cool about SGC is the group at Screwattack, like, look, for any indie gamers interested in promoting their games and that, you can set up a booth here for free, not have to pay for the entire weekend. Obviously, you have to figure out, your shelter or lodging for the night. But yeah, it's basically, free base the whole way in terms of just setting up a booth and advertising your game and stuff. So I thought that was a huge, shout out and promotion to the indie gamers. And I'm sure more than positive that SGC and people at Screwattack have a lot of respect for that from the indie gamers, as I heard from groups like Osiris Studio. So
Awesome.
in terms of the layout, that's really pretty much it. But I mean, it sounds simplistic, but it's just so detailed and so big. You almost had to be there yourself, kind of thing. So
Right, for sure. That's awesome to hear. Um, my so when it comes to conventions, obviously, like when it comes to the massive amounts of nerds coming together to have a great time,
uh-huh.
one of the things that often happens is like if somebody brings a 3DS and they go to convention, it is like by the time the convention ends, they would have like at least 300 plus new friends on their 3DS.
Oh yeah.
By any chance, do you have a 3DS?
I don't. I have DS, but my buddy who went with me did, and like within one day he had over 200 street passes. So yeah, I totally. It was so cool. I mean, he would get street passes from like people who originally came from China or the Netherlands or things like that, and it's just like wow, we're really coming together, uniting under this banner of gaming and geekdom. So it was really cool.
That's so cool. Funny that one of these days I went to get a 3DS. One of these days.
Yeah.
Um, so it was for 4 days, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
How was because like in that area, like what was around the area that you can get for food, or what was like or you had to go out of your way to kind of get somewhere to get some real food, not the convention food that they would cost you like an arm and a limb just for like a
Oh
pizza.
yeah. Well, fortunately, locating it in Dallas, Texas was smart because, I mean, obviously you'll have anything from, the regular chain like fast food restaurants to the very unique local places. Unfortunately, because it's Dallas, I mean, obviously a lot of in-town restaurants are going to be ridiculously expensive. However, it's kind of a joke. It was funny because it was almost like at every, highway exit, there would always be this cheap like taco stand. So it's like, hey, we could always go to one of those. And we actually waited until like our trip home to go to one of those. But in terms of, just sustenance, I mean, we kept it cheap, like low key. Like I ended up bringing literally like 9 things of ramen. And I
Oh.
think like 5, yeah, 5 of them were like mac and cheese ramen. But my buddy and I, we always have this tradition where on like Friday of the convention, we'll order Domino's. And the reason we choose Friday is so then that way, because we know Saturday is going to be packed. Plus, there's usually always something going on. So we figure Friday, usually the first night we get there, we'll order Domino's. And that's kind of just a tradition. But also, because we know it's not going to be as busy, your chances of getting served quickly are a lot higher, especially for delivery as opposed to Saturday when it's just ridiculous. So
For sure, for sure. I totally agree with that. I mean, sometimes if you're on a budget, going cheap with food is the best way to go. We're not,
yeah.
I definitely been there a few times. As far as the oh man, I was gonna say, so when you're walking around the convention center and you're seeing everybody having fun and whatnot, Um, was there anything in particular as far as like the cosplays you saw? Like, was there any one that particularly that stood out to you?
Oh my gosh, yes. On the part of my article when I talked about the cosplay contest, the character who cosplayed is Ganondorf, but in like the creature form.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. It was like imagining this cosplay that's literally as tall, if not taller, than Shaquille O'Neal of this,
Oh
yeah,
wow, no
yeah,
way.
literally, of this character in this like bull, like, creature figure coming at you. And the person cosplaying it has to go kind of slow because, I mean, the hooves alone were as big, if not bigger, than my waistline. So,
Damn.
yeah. And what was so cool is at first I saw people accompanying this cosplayer, and I thought, oh, well, maybe that's his or her friends, helping her balance it. But it turns out those were just other random, con goers who are like, obviously this person needs some help. So that was really cool. Um, Also, what I thought was really cool about this particular event and cosplay, especially in comparison to other conventions I've been to, sometimes people tend to be shy about, approaching cosplayers and being like, can I get your picture? Or can I get a picture with you? This one, because it was like this open, friendly experience, you could tell that some people who would normally be shy just, really felt comfortable in this environment and were just like, hey man, can I get, steal a quick pic with you? And 90% of the time, or actually 100%, because I didn't see anyone who said no, were cosplayers like, yeah, let's get a group pic, or let's do several poses. So it was definitely very warming, very welcoming. And it was a great time for both cosplayers and non-cosplayers to like to get together and experience that together. So it was really cool.
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely. Well, whenever there's a convention going on, like it's everybody is very friendly with one another. It's like there isn't nothing of like any bad negative vibes happening. It's like everybody's there to have fun. Yeah, that's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
the when you went to go get your badge for registration there at the con, how was the registration? Was it pretty fast and you were quick in and out, or was like a huge line, everybody like waiting to get their badge and kind of wait for like 20 to 30 minutes to get it?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, my buddy and I, we were major early birds, and that's because we already knew that Dallas was going to be a nightmare trying to get into, especially like on a Friday.
Oh yeah.
So I think we ended up leaving. I'm trying to think, like, I'm trying to think, when did we leave? I think we left like Thursday morning and arrived there, late Thursday evening. And yeah, it was like a 12-hour drive. It was ridiculous, but
Mm.
somehow we survived. Yeah, somehow we survived, and in the process of it, we got to Dallas in like late, evening Thursday, and there was only maybe 20 people there, like in terms of congoers.
Hmm.
So it was like easy breezy just going up, and even though they had like a pre-registration line, it was really kind of pointless at that point because there was no one standing there, so you could just go up and be like, oh yeah, I'm here for this, and just pick up my badge. So yeah, in terms of experience, I mean, we lucked out, but later on, I did notice on the weekend, like especially obviously, Friday evening and Saturday, there were some lines starting to form. Although what I thought was impressive is since they had like at least, five or plus more people running the badge booth, which I usually don't see at other conventions. I mean, they were going through those people quick, So I'd say at max, you'd have maybe 3 or 4 lines of 4 people in each line at most, but they were cranking them out pretty quick. So I was impressed on those terms.
Awesome. That is awesome. This is something that just kind of been a gripe, at least for me and like other people who go on the convention. It's like registration is a huge part of it, and uh, testing their patience is not the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
Obviously, this past year, if you ever seen our report or heard our podcast, we were kind of griping about that at this year's or past year's Fanime, and oh man, that's another story to tell, or everybody who's wondering what happened, you go back and listen to that podcast. Um, but that's great to hear. That's great to hear that everything was organized and that they were able to get you guys in and out quickly. Um, the question I just remember when I was talking to you earlier was that did the con have a curfew? Like, was it a 24-hour type of convention center, or was it a curfew at a certain point and then like they shut off everything and then just wait till the next day?
Yeah, it was pretty much the latter. I wouldn't say that it had like a really strict curfew, like after 3 o'clock, everyone like needs to be lights out, go back to your hotel rooms. It was just kind of one of those where it's like, after 3 o'clock in the morning, there really wasn't much going on. However, if you wanted to, just sit down and chat with the guests, which I thought was really unique and cool, you could do that. Case in point, my buddy, he after we both attended not what am I trying to say? Not Activision. I'm trying to recall the name of the group. The guys who made and produced the game Turok.
Oh man, that is.
Yeah. What am I trying to say? And the South Park game.
Oh, Ubisoft.
Oh no, not Ubisoft. Let me pull it up real quick.
Yeah. I know who you guys. THQ. No, it wasn't THQ.
Much older. If my buddy was here, he'd be like, "Dude, Manny, what are you doing?"
Right. Yeah, like I'm kind of. I know what you're talking about, but the company behind.
Oh, Iguana Entertainment.
There okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. So they're very old school, but I mean, very cool stuff. I mean, from Turok, Batman Forever, South Park, the video game.
Yeah.
But yeah, just chatting with those guys, they were very real. But what was so cool about them is after their panel, like people still wanted to talk to them, and it was like maybe after 10 o'clock or midnight. But rather than going to bed early, those guys are like, yeah, we'll just go to the cocktail bar and we can all be adults and just talk about random stuff. So it was a live, Q&A session with anyone who wanted to be part of that. So
there was a bar?
Oh yeah, there was. In fact, in my article, I took a picture, or my buddy took a picture of like an aerial view of the cocktail bar area. That's kind of in the center lobby area that you see like the Star of Texas and these few elevators that go up to it. But if you notice in the picture, towards the upper part of it, you'll see like bar there with tons of tables and stuff, and if you wanted to, you could order like little finger food, or you can just order drinks, and it's just like a regular cocktail lounge where you just sit down and take a break. So
for sure, I can imagine that those guys who were there that were still talking and in a cocktail bar must have been probably a bit more interesting than the actual panel itself. Can you imagine just like, you're talking to these guys, they're having a few drinks and they're, talking about whatever. Either it'd be like the most intellectual thing you ever heard or like the most funniest shit you might have never heard in a long time.
Yeah.
So out of the entire convention you've been to, and kind of like, what would you take away from this convention and overall experience?
Overall experience, I definitely learned that location. I mean, Dallas, Texas was literally perfect in the sense that, it was kind of centrally located. It's easy to get to, whether it's plane, train, or bus. We ended up driving in my buddy's car or his mom's car. But still, it wasn't a bad drive. But what's nice about it is because they chose the Hyatt, it was definitely a respectable location, but it was very spacious. It had tons of accommodations in terms of sizes of rooms you need, just the location of the rooms themselves, and the reachability of simple amenities. Like even the gift shop there was really helpful. Like I totally forgot my lip balm, and I was getting like chapel lips. So I just went up to the gift shop, and they charged me an arm and a leg just for some simple lip balm. But I mean, little things like that, because I thought I'd have to go to like the local Walmart, and I'm like, oh, that's the last thing I want to do is like ruin our valet parking and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, definitely location. Obviously, the types of guests you bring and how much time you give them is important. What I thought was interesting is there were some guests where they'd give them like an hour or an hour and a half, but because of however they planned it, I guess they wanted to accommodate for timing in between panels, like give at least an additional 30 minutes or another hour break. If fans wanted to, they could request that guest to speak for that additional 30 minutes to an hour. So, I mean, it was a huge bonus. Plus, it was an added time for more, Q&A with the fans or with the guests, and then just other, random stuff. So that was cool. Honestly, though, I did feel kind of rushed in between certain panels. Like I noticed they tend to put a lot of the better ones back to back. In fact, I'm trying to think, who was it that I missed? Well, I missed Adam Sessler, unfortunately, and that was because I think I was attending either James Rolfe or Nathan Barnett's panel, so that kind of stunk. And you can really get that from any con too. When you have multiple panels going on and you just have too many interests, that could happen anywhere.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've been there plenty of times.
Yeah. So there was that. But also what I thought was cool about this particular convention, and I honestly can say that I haven't felt this really from any other convention, except maybe CosplayCon in Jeff City, Missouri, was this feeling that, like, even if I went to this con by myself, like, just the environment and the atmosphere, like, people would just come up to me and be like, hey, have you played this game before? And, on the streets, that would be kind of awkward, but it'd be like, well, yeah, let's talk about this. But here, it just felt like you literally were family. Like, you could just walk up to someone and be like, hey, I'm playing this RPG right now. Do you know anything about this or how to beat this level? And people would take time out of their day to help you or find someone who could, or text someone. So, and like you had asked about the experience with the 3DS, I mean, I only saw one guy pull out a PS Vita, and unfortunately he was ostracized.
Was he really?
Yeah, because, he was literally surrounded by 3DSs, and then he pulled out his Vita, and everyone's like, oh my god, is that a Vita? Like, it's not even a PSP, which means it's not cool. I'm like,
oh, damn.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. But no, they were just razzing him. But no, it was definitely a great, warming experience. And I thought what really topped it off, like the sprinkles you talked about, was the cosplay, and the integration of that, but also not making it an afterthought, but rather a truly addition to the experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast to talk about your time at SGC. Would you recommend this convention for anybody else who was thought about going this past year but couldn't go, or on the fence about going?
Oh my gosh, yeah, hands down, definitely. Especially if they hold it at the same location. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, but unless it was like for cost or just, maybe a time conflict. But definitely, I would highly recommend going to it, and mainly for A, people who are into gaming, B, anyone who's into cosplay or is thinking about it, definitely for that too. Or C, if you're just entirely new to, like, I guess, cosplay, gaming, and I guess this form of entertainment altogether, and you just don't know what to think about it. Or maybe if you are totally immersed in this and you just want to share your experience or see what others feel about it, it's a great social environment to do it with, and you definitely don't feel like you're being judged for it. But even more so, you feel like you're in this family environment where it's encouraged to, express your thoughts about gaming and cosplay altogether. So yeah, highly recommend going again.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me again for this podcast. Where can I find you on the internet?
Oh yeah, well, obviously we have a link here on MSP where we talk about the staff we're on here. I also have my own website called it's www.thatcosplayguy.com. It's all one word, and again, it's thatcosplayguy.com. And again, on that one, I just really focus a lot on cosplay in particular. But I tend to also talk about my experiences, not just at the conventions themselves, but I'll take a lot of photos of the cosplayers and then just ask them, what their experience is like, as well as sharing my own. So that's just a couple ways of finding me. And then, of course, there's on Facebook, too, That Cosplay Guy as well. So
awesome. You can follow me on Twitter at @DefectiveNaruto. You can follow the work that I do and this podcast on our website at missionstartpodcast.com. You can also read up on Manny's review of SGC in our convention review page. Check it out there, along with our convention footage from that. And other cool shit we have on the site as well. Reviews, videos, playthroughs, all awesome stuff. But anyways, again, thank you again, Manny, for joining me for this podcast. Thank you, listeners, for listening for this podcast. And we will see you all again next time.
All right. Good evening, everyone.